I am pleased to call forward Alderman Alex Brower and welcome him as he receives his oath of office.
I, Alex Brower,
I, Alex Brower,
who have been elected
Alderman
of the 3rd District,
Alderman of the 3rd District,
swear that I will support
swear that I will support
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of Wisconsin,
and the Constitution of the State of Wisconsin,
and will faithfully discharge
the
duties of this office
the duties of this office
to the best of my ability.
best of my ability.
Congratulations.
Thank you so much. Thank you. May I wish you- Thank you all so much. Thanks to everybody here who showed up for me today, specifically my legislative assistant, Jessica Cook, and my dad, John Brower. Thank you for being here. And thank you all to the guests who showed up today as well. And thank you for the potentially unwilling guests who are also waiting to receive awards and have to endure this speech for the remainder for this time. I just want to, say thank you to everybody and introduce myself. My name is Alex Brower. My pronouns are he, him. It was Vladimir Lenin who said that there are decades where nothing happens and weeks where decades happen. And it has certainly felt like the last 3 weeks have encompassed decades of my life. With a breathtaking speed, I was elected on a Tuesday, on April 1st, took the oath of office on the following Friday, the 4th, and started my work here as a member of this esteemed body on the following Monday. I hired Jessica Cook, who managed my campaign, as my legislative assistant, and we are starting week 3 of this important work serving Milwaukee. And now I'm here, and today, colleagues, I am just thankful and grateful. You have all been nothing but welcoming and hospitable. I intend to keep this spirit of hospitality strong and alive in this body, and to commit to agree when we can, and when we disagree, not be disagreeable, but at the very minimum, seek understanding. I ran for this seat after the unfortunate passing of Jonathan Brostoff because I want to see a better world. I intend to do everything I can to achieve that. I want to see a world of equality and abundance. I want to see a world where every person is supported and contributes. As Marx once widely said, from each according to his ability and to each according to his needs. We need a better world, a world with free health care for all, free college tuition at every public university, high wages, pensions for every single worker, guaranteed income, and a restored and biologically sound environment that makes us all healthier. Just because this world is going mad doesn't mean we can't envision a better one. I would ask every single one of my colleagues and the audience here, let's not retreat into resignation, but lunge forward towards a bold vision that lifts up every single human. And that brings us to what the current problem is that we face, the collective problem, the biggest problem. Because I suspect that a lot of you agree with the values I just shared. But what's holding us back from achieving what I described? What's holding us back is the profit motive. The profit motive is the foundation of the capitalist system. And the supporters of capitalism will argue that the profit motive is the sole source of innovation and progress. But the profit motive is harmful because it makes us all subject to its will. But the profit motive is inherent to capitalism. Capitalism started when production became commodified for the benefit of traders and those who could who could front the money for expeditions and eventually industry. The rise of capitalism coincided and was aided by the expansion of the slave trade, where we placed into commodification human beings. It was on August 18th, 1518, when Charles V granted permission for slaves to be brought to the Americas from non-Christian lands, and thus the slave trade was born. Millions and millions of lives were lost to toil and wretchedness, and the slaveholders were the original capitalists. They bought slaves, traded slaves, mortgaged slaves, assaulted and raped them, and treated them like property. You all know this already, and I don't need to belabor these horrors, but I mention it to illustrate, as a foundation, how far the capitalists will go in this world. The capitalists will sell everything in the name of earning a profit, including people. We cannot discuss American capitalism without acknowledging that millions of Americans were held in chattel slavery. The only thing that ended the capitalist chattel slavery system was a war that even to this day has consumed more American lives than any other war we have ever engaged in. Slavery still exists, by the way, as well in the United States today, with the 13th Amendment to the United States Constitution allowing for enslavement as a condition of prison. The capitalist class needs the prison system, right, to ensure that workers know what will happen if they disobey, and to create a permanent underclass of people who are forever branded with the word felon. Additionally, another more subtle, less brutal form of slavery exists today as well, and that's the system of what has been called wage slavery. While orders of magnitude less brutal than chattel slavery, wage slavery forces a worker to bend to the will of his boss and be at the mercy of a corporation. If you do not have wages in this country given to you by a capitalist, you do not have shelter, food, or other essentials. You are trapped as a wage worker. And you might say, and the supporters of capitalism might say, well, that's not bad at all. Everybody needs a job. And I would agree that while wage slavery is way less brutal than chattel slavery, it is still stifling. Remember earlier when we talked about people being able to be innovative and having all these bold ideas, right? Well, how are we supposed to advance as a species if so many of us can't even sit down for 5 minutes? Because we are running from one job to the next, one obligation to the next, and one meeting to the next. The system that we are in crushes innovation. And I would argue that if the workers of the world released themselves from the shackles of wage slavery, then there would be innovation just for the sake of innovation, just because people inherently want to contribute. People are naturally cooperative, not competitive. So if we free all workers, we free all people to be better and contribute, all while being motivated by their internal desire to make lives better for their community and their families. So what's the alternative? What's the alternative to this system that I've outlined, this system of capitalism that oppresses all of us? The alternative to this system is not a tweak of the system or a reform, but a complete replacement. We need a new system that puts people first, and that system is socialism. Socialism is the idea that whenever someone creates wealth, they own that wealth, and our economic decisions are made democratically. That when a worker goes into a factory and makes a widget or produces something or flips a burger, by the nature of them doing that work, they inherently own it. Not somebody who owns a piece of paper called a franchise, or who owns a piece of paper called a share certificate, or a piece of paper at the courthouse that says they own a piece of property where they can charge rent, right? But the people that actually use it, the people. Socialists want to see the worker at the head of a completely democratic system. We already elect people to public office, and those of us here enjoy this position because we were elected. But we should also be electing our bosses. We should also be electing who governs the houses we live in. Right now, somebody can own a piece of paper down at the courthouse, and it's called the Register of Deeds office, and it says that they own a piece of property, and they can charge you money and exploit you for that land that you live on and you create the wealth for. And that's called being a landlord. And as socialists, we do not believe that those kinds of arrangements should exist. Okay, they should be outlawed, and we should move to a system where the renters control their property, right? And where people control everything that we produce, and it is run democratically. This is a systemic issue, right? And as socialists, we recognize that problems are systemic. not individually based. Take, for example, the healthcare crisis that we see here in the United States. Okay? So many Americans struggle with obesity. And in our current system and in the current media environment, we blame those individuals. Oh, you're just not hitting the gym enough. You're not exercising enough. You're not counting your calories. But how can somebody do that when you're a prisoner of a system that pushes junk food every single day into our communities? How can we blame the individual for being overweight when you go to every single corner store and there's nothing for sale but sugar and processed wheat? We can't blame those individuals. The problem is systemic. And that's why we need a change in the system. Okay? Not just a tweak, not just a reform, not just a regulator. Right? Because we inherently believe that once we have a democracy, the progress that we want, where we can transcend these unhealthy lifestyles collectively, right? We can achieve that through cooperation. As a socialist, and I ran proudly and openly as a socialist in this race, and the voters of District 3, at least 54% of them, wanted to see that. Socialists differ from liberals and fascists and progressives very starkly. For example, when the fascists like Donald Trump and the Republican Party see a corporation, when they see a corporation like GE or McDonald's or any of them, they look at that corporation and they say, how can the population be subjugated to that corporation? How can we maximize that corporation's profits to the detriment of everyone else? That's the question the fascist will ask. When a liberal sees a corporation, they'll ask, does this corporation have a rainbow flag in front of it? And when the progressives see a corporation, they ask, is it regulated enough? Have the clipboard police visited this corporation enough? But a socialist looks at a corporation and asks, how can we, the people, own it and therefore prosper from it? The idea that we can regulate corporations is a complete and utter failure. We need social and democratic ownership of every single corporation. And that's why, because of those values, I'm a socialist in the proud tradition of Milwaukee's sewer socialists, like Mayors Seidel, Hone, and Zeidler. The movement I represent aims to bring back the spirit of the old socialist politicians that once walked these halls. They were called sewer socialists because of their focus on infrastructure. But they did support a broad, radical change in this country. In the words of Emile Seidel, the first socialist mayor of Milwaukee, who served from 1910 to 1912, he said, some Eastern smarties have called ours a sewer socialism. Yes, we wanted sewers in the workers' homes, but we wanted much, oh so very much more than sewers. We wanted our workers to have pure air. We wanted them to have sunshine. We wanted them to have planned homes. We wanted living wages. We wanted recreation for young and old. We wanted vocational education. We wanted a chance for every human being to be strong and live a life of happiness. And we wanted everything that was necessary to give them that. Playgrounds, parks, lakes, beaches, clean creeks and rivers, swimming and wading pools, social centers, reading rooms, clean fun, music, dance, song, and joy for all. That was our Milwaukee social democratic movement, end quote. So what we seek is no more profit motive, no more shareholders, and no more exploitation. How do we achieve this? Because what I've outlined is, I think by some of your assessments might be a rather tall order, and I would agree. But how do we achieve this? How do we collectively achieve this? We need to examine in ourselves and in this body how we can affect change and where that change comes from. The traditional change, the traditional view is that change comes from leaders. It goes something like this. The traditional view goes something like this, right? Leaders make a decision in a body like this, and they promulgate that decision out to the masses in the form of a law, which is now enforceable by the state. That is the elite theory of change. But what I'm going to propose to all of you is that real, lasting, and powerful change and transformative change, the kind that will bring about socialism or other values that we want to see, even if you're not a socialist, the kind that we all want to see in this body, comes from the ground up. And it comes from the masses. And it's a mass movement theory of change and how we get things done. And it works like this. And it's been proven to work in history, where people, regular people, united, make a demand of their leaders and persist in organizing around that demand until the leaders yield. That is how we got some of the best legislation in the United States, including the Civil Rights Act, the Voting Rights Act, women's suffrage, and other things. And we can create a mass movement theory of change by organizing. And for those of you that know me, you know I come from a strong organizing tradition as a union organizer and a community organizer and an organizer of substitute teachers and retirees. And I want to pitch to all of you on the council that if we want to see transformative change here at City Hall, we have to organize ourselves and become the organizers in chief of all of our districts. We have to organize and fight back. Right now, in this dark time, we need to resist. Historian Howard Zinn said, historically, the most terrible things, war, genocide, and slavery, have resulted not from disobedience, but from obedience. We as a body, we as a public, and we as Milwaukee must fight back. We must disobey and resist. And we do that by focusing on building the mass movement. Every single one of us on this body, and everyone in this room too, if you are part of a community, you can be a leader, and you have a base of people by which to organize towards a revolution. And we have a base by which to build other leaders, not only to replace us, but to surpass us and achieve even more. Because the vision I've outlined of a socialist society, and even if you don't agree with that, even if you disagree with some parts of it, the vision I've outlined of a socialist society requires there to be more leaders. We as a council need to engage our ward and neighborhood leaders to hold one-on-one organizing conversations and mobilize our voters to stand up for broad reforms. Because already I've learned, and some of you have shared with me, and some of you have experienced the limitations that we face in this body. And the only way we can surpass those limitations is through mass movement organizing. Let's talk about what we can do here at the council level to make change for the workers. Today I took an oath to uphold the Constitution of our country, and I intend to, and the Constitution of this state. But this country is a self-improvement project. The founders of this country spent more time justifying slavery than they did giving every human rights. We must recognize the faults of this country and work to improve it. This country needs to be refounded on the principles of socialism, and we can work towards it here. On this council, we can't just pass an ordinance, though, and get rid of socialism, get rid of capitalism, but we can, and create socialism, but we can ameliorate the rough edges of capitalism here. Specifically in the city of Milwaukee, we need to work as a council towards a safer and healthier city. And that really truly means getting to the root causes of crime. Because the constant police presence has been shown to not be effective at stopping crime. And while we should empower the state with the ability to have an arrest and with the power of violence if necessary, we need to look at what is causing crime and get to its roots, right? And more often than not, crime is created by the system that we have in place. The capitalist needs the criminal element so they can continually have a lower class. We also need, as another thing, we need to support our city workforce. City workers are the backbone of what we do. Every day I am aided by people who are employed by this city, not just my legislative assistant, but the people in the clerk's office, the people in other departments. We need to support them. We need to make working for this city the best job in town so that we can attract and fill all of our vacancies and have the best and brightest work for us. We also need to have housing for everyone. And that means, eventually, when we move towards a socialist system, having communal ownership of properties like apartment buildings. But in the meantime, until we can achieve that, we need to do everything we can to hold the landlords accountable. Every tool at our disposal we should use to make sure that developers and landlords are held accountable and serving the people that rent from them, not serving their profits. We are extremely limited with statutes regarding that, but we can organize. We also need in this city quality public education. Every single child in this city deserves a quality education. And as a socialist, I believe that our schools should be held collectively and governed collectively. And that means supporting our school board here in the city of Milwaukee and ensuring that we have an independently, democratically elected school board that is also accountable to voters just like us. That also means that we cease chartering schools here at the city of government, right? And have those schools either become public schools or be chartered by the school board, which has the expertise and knowledge to govern them. Lastly, and certainly not leastly though, what we need to do here in Milwaukee is have public ownership of public utilities. And let's talk about what that means. Public ownership of public utilities means that the things that serve all of us and things that serve us jointly should be held in joint ownership. When a corporation, Daniel Hone said that when a corporation reaches the stage of monopoly, we shouldn't work to break it up. We shouldn't work to smash the trusts, but we should bring those trusts into collective ownership. Because when something is a monopoly, it is inherently serving all the public. And therefore, if we are truly small d Democrats in our hearts, we believe that those corporations should be owned by the people. And we have tools in the statutes currently at our disposal to bring public ownership of public utilities and make it a reality here in the city of Milwaukee. In addition to other statutes, we have at our disposal Chapter 197 of the Wisconsin State Statutes, Municipal Acquisition of Utilities, which gives us the statutory right under the state's constitution and statutes to acquire the property of public utilities here in Milwaukee and bring them under public ownership. A public utility is a utility that serves the public. It doesn't inherently mean it's owned by the public, though. So what are some examples of that? Spectrum, AT&T, and one of the biggest, most evil corporations in this city, We Energies. That's right, they are. We can and we should bring We Energies infrastructure within the city limits under public ownership. Chapter 197 gives us the statutory path. We spend so much time in this body talking about where the statutes limit us. Chapter 197 liberates the city of Milwaukee to acquire We Energies, and we have an obligation to the citizenry to banish that corporation from this city's limits. As Dan Hone said, I'll repeat it, when a business reaches the state of monopoly, it must come under public ownership, right? And that's what we intend to do, and we shouldn't stop there. Chapter 197 applies to all public utilities, which means that we can do more to provide utility for the citizenry and serve as government should, right? Little old Cedarburg, Wisconsin, little old lily white Cedarburg, Wisconsin has what I am describing. They have socialism there, and we should bring it here to Milwaukee. Cedarburg not only has a municipal utility, they have a municipal internet provider as well. And we should have that here so that we can provide high quality fiber optic level speeds to every single resident at the least possible price. I would like to use my election here as an opportunity to engage with all of you and inform you of the great path that we have before us to rid this city of the scourge of We Energies. And I intend to work towards that, and I ask you all to join me. As Eugene Debs said, all things that are jointly used ought to be jointly owned. I just want to conclude here, though, and thank you all for obliging the time I take. I am known for being long-winded, so thank you for obliging me here. I just wanted to also, just before I step off the podium here, thank those who helped our movement, the movement for socialism, achieve this 3rd District seat and helped me to get here. I want to first thank Jessica Cook, who's my legislative assistant and was my campaign manager. Thank you. Thank you, comrade. I want to also thank Andy Barber, deputy campaign manager. I want to thank the entire campaign leadership team, Olivia, Janice Summers, John Horstman, Ryan Taylor, so many other people that I can't even begin to acknowledge, because we had at least 153 unique volunteers in my campaign. But because of that, they all know, and that means that this seat is not just held by Alex Brower individual, it is held by everyone who is fighting for a new economy in this city, everyone who is fighting for socialism. All those 153 volunteers and the hundreds of members of the Milwaukee Democratic Socialists of America, and everyone who describes themselves as a socialist or leftist in this city owns that seat. I also want to thank my parents, Nona Schrader and John Brower, and my dad's right here. Thank you, Dad. You guys haven't applauded yet. Applaud for him at least, okay? Applaud for him. Yeah. Yeah. If anything, this was all just a long attempt to make you proud. Thank you, everybody, seriously, for your time and allowing me to speak here today and honoring me by swearing me in. I hope to reciprocate the honor and treat all of you with respect and dignity and work, like I said, together where we can, and where we disagree, not be disagreeable. I did want to conclude, though, with some wise words that reflect my perspective. In 1918, socialist Eugene Debs, who led a strike of railroad workers and was imprisoned for that, also who ran as a socialist candidate for president at least several times. In 1918, he was put on trial for opposing the United States' entry into World War I. He was found guilty, and he ran for president in that year's election from his prison cell. I'd like to share his words as a final thought. During his trial, he said to the judge, "Your Honor, years ago, I recognized my kinship with all living beings, and I made up my mind that I was not one bit better than the meanest of them on earth. I said then, and I say now, that while there is a lower class, I am in it. While there is a criminal element, I am of it. And while there is a soul in prison, I am not free." Thank you, colleagues.